Okay, Laura, we were talking in another meeting about something big and/or also multiple big things that happened this past weekend. If you could describe to me again, what changes did you see happen over the weekend on Amazon specifically?
Yeah, we saw some significant CPC increases. And you may think, well, it's holiday, that should be expected. This was a little bit different than the usual CPC increases that we've seen around really competitive times of the year, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, around Prime Day. For an average weekend in December, which I don't know how you can use the term average, CPCs saw a significant increase. Now, what happened was not bids were increased or anything like that. It was truly the discount between the bid and the CPC decreased. We know that Amazon is a second price auction. So rather than paying your actual bid, you are getting a discount to pay essentially a penny more than the second place winner of that auction or the second place bidder of that auction. And so usually we see a pretty healthy discount. And again, this is dependent on the target, whether it's a brand target, a competitor target, or a generic target, between the bid itself and the CPC. So the bid is what you tell Amazon you're willing to pay, and the CPC is, of course, the actual cost that's accrued for the click.
Why is this different from those times?
That's a great question. You know, when we first take a look at something, our analysts are looking at a single account. And did this come down to a bid push that we implemented at the end of last week? Is it competition in this specific category that popped up? The fact that we're seeing a very sharp increase at a very consistent time period, pretty much Friday to Saturday is when we saw this jump across all of our brands, all of these categories. And, we've talked to brands and their friends who maybe don't use our tool, although they should. Those that don't, we've talked to them as well. They saw the same thing. So it's certainly something we're seeing outside of our organization. It's something we've talked to colleagues at other companies supporting brands on Amazon, and they've seen the same increases. So just the fact that it was so widespread across all of these different categories, it's not that there was this huge influx of new competitors in every single category targeting every single term overnight. And so just the timing and the reach of it really indicated that this is something outside of there was a switch turned on and competition changed overnight. That really just doesn't seem to be the case.
So why does this matter then? And another way of saying that perhaps is, what's the output here? Like what will happen as a result, or what has happened as a result of this change?
Yeah, anytime CPCs increase, you're either spending a lot more money to get the same number of clicks, or you're getting fewer clicks because you have a capped budget. And so this is impacting volume, and it's impacting brand terms as well. That was another indicator that something's off here. You get that discount because you're hyper relevant. If you're targeting your own brand terms, Amazon knows that's a high click-through rate, a high, likelihood of conversion, and you should be getting that discount. And we saw that decrease. So we're seeing brands having to pay more on their own terms. We're seeing it harder to compete or get that discount that they're used to seeing and maintain the same number of clicks for the budget that they have allocated for the remainder of holiday. And now this is limiting their reach, their visibility through ads to reach those consumers in this critical time period.
The question in my mind is, okay, this has been proven that it's not just a one-off normal December thing. This is a little abnormal. The effect is noticeable. CPCs went up, budgets were affected. The question in my mind now is, what can brands do about it? So what's a good way to handle this?
That's a great question. So let's back up really quick. One of the areas that was impacted the most was brand. As I mentioned, you're used to seeing a significant discount between bid and CPC because the utility score is so high. again, your click-through rate is very high, your conversion rate is very high. Amazon sees this as a great consumer experience to show your brand. So they're willing to give you that placement at a discount CPC. So even though you may bid $5, please don't do that on your brand. But if that's the case that you have to do, you're bidding $5, maybe you're used to only paying 75 cents or $1.50 or somewhere in that range. That jumped up. I mean, we saw what we would consider headroom between bid and CPC go from about $1.85 in one example to just 7 cents. So that really closed the gap on, we're used to paying this much for traffic. So especially because we're seeing this on brand and really across the board, there's a couple things that you can do. Number one, you should always be willing to pay what you are bidding, right? If you're using our technology, we're inputting a max target, an ACOS target, that is you're calculating your bid to the value of the click for the specific target and considering the AOV, right? We're looking at conversion rate of a target and the AOV that brings in. And so the bid that we produce should continue to drive value at the efficiency that you set.
Okay.
We should always be willing to pay what we bid. We do push brand bids up sometimes to make sure that we are never losing out to competitors. We always want to make sure. So again, that is an area where we usually do have what I would consider that guardrail a little bit wider, right? That difference is more significant. So the first thing is you should understand that you should still be bidding to the value. However, I understand it's also very uncomfortable to lose that discount and have to pay more for the same traffic and lose some of the efficiencies that you can gain from the discount of a second price auction. What you should do to manually correct for this, while I'm very much hoping Amazon is correcting and fixing their algorithm that caused this change, my speculation, of course, but everything indicates in that direction. There's a couple of things that you can be doing. You can be reducing your bids. You could be reducing the max target or the ACOS target to a slightly more comfortable or more aggressive state. Let's say you're at 17% ACOS target for an ad group. Maybe you want to drop that to 13, 14, 15% now. Just a couple percentage points can drop that. And so it creates less headroom between the bid and the CPC. You do want to monitor, and you can use MI for this, our market intelligence tool, to make sure that you're not losing visibility. You can also monitor your impressions or impression share, as well as general traffic. If other brands are continuing to stay aggressive and you start to pull back, you could start losing auctions. So just especially through the remainder of holiday, make sure you're staying visible, even if you're pulling back on bids through adjustment of that ACOS target. The other thing that you can do within our tool, if you're a self-serve client, reach out to our team. If you're a managed services client, talk to your analyst or account manager and talk about putting a stricter max bid in place. So along with the bid that we have these min bid and max bids, essentially a floor and a ceiling, and the bid has to exist somewhere within that. If you lower that, you're closing in that guardrail to be a little bit more narrow on the road and a little bit safer. Again, we don't want to rely heavily on these guardrails. Again, I always say you don't want to drive your car with the guardrails or you're going to end up with a big mess. But this is one of those times that you could implement decreasing those max bids to stay within a safer range, again, particularly on brand. You want to make sure you stay visible, but you also want to make sure you know what to expect to pay for a CPC. The last thing I would say that you should do to make sure you understand this change is check your campaign settings. Are you on fixed bids, bid up and down, or bid down only? We're trying to understand now the campaigns that saw the greatest change in the setting. Usually we lean on, and I shy away from the term best practice because I think you rest lazily on those laurels. But we usually recommend down only. But we are also, constantly testing this. So do check those settings as well, particularly through the end of holiday. It is probably best to stick on either fixed bid or down only at this time.
Laura, thank you for this quick update on something that happened over the weekend. More discussions to happen in the future. Really looking forward to AdMax. This is honestly a taste of something of what is to come when AdMax comes to fruition on January 26th. Looking forward to more conversations like that. and I'm excited. So thank you so much for sharing.
Of course, we'll see you at AdMax.